Miia. Okay, so first of all, again, thank you, Miia, for organizing this very useful and contributing symposium, which I find it raises even more questions than answers. It gives more opportunities to questions to ask. So I will start with what we had here and recommend also what we should continue next year and then we'll have others. So what we see that over the years, based on research in education in general and on science teaching and learning in particular, we learned a lot about issues related to teaching and learning, on students' behavior and interactions in the classroom, the effectiveness of ICT, and methods enhancing the effectiveness of learning. However, we need always to ask ourselves, what is the impact of all this? We're doing it year after year. For me, it's many, many years that I'm doing it. I don't like to mention it. And what impact do we make? Are we in alignment with changes in culture, with changes in the world, in the politics, with the climate change, which influences everyone, with technological developments? We should always think about it. We can't teach or think as we did 20 years ago, although I liked it to teach like that, but these are not the same students and it's not the same circumstances. So this seminar referred to the importance of getting evidence of the impact of science education in attracting young people toward science studies and science-related careers. The evidence of impact may be achieved by bridging the gap between research in science education and practice. That will also help in creating a network between science education research and science education, or studying, for example, criteria for equality in practice-oriented research in science education, equality in inclusiveness, diversity, being very much attendant and very much sensitive to all these parameters. Now, the criteria should take into account students' cognitive, the families which were here mentioned, his cultural components, motivational, personal, affective aspects, teacher needs and beliefs, different types of curricular material, and so on and so forth. We had this beautiful panel, which I liked a lot. It was only short for me, in which we had to think about the motivational patterns or how to prepare our students to future happenings or disasters or survival, and about research at the universities and so on. So in order to address the topics which were discussed in the seminar were related to research which is integrated, embedded into science education, in teaching and learning, in relevant curriculum materials. We always have a research before, we try it out, then we get our evidence, and then we change again. All the reforms are based on what's happening first of all, and then we need to have a reform. Impact of contemporary relevant curriculum materials, impact of contemporary issues in science education on student motivation, contemporary issues such, again, we are sticking to what was talked here, sustainability issues or climate change issues, and so on. And while there was also the panel discussion, which was held about the competencies which are essential for a career in the private sector and in industry, competencies such as networking or how to, one of the most contemporary research, global research, and so on. Again, I mentioned the climate change once again, because I wanted to show, but also about gender issues, about the STEM education, which we have. The gender issue was not discussed, but it's very self-evident that you can't discuss everything unless you want to make it very, very, very superficial. So maybe gender will be next time discussed and so on. So, in summary, the seminar managed to accomplish its goals, to my opinion, namely focusing on issues referring to integrating research with teaching, competencies needed for teachers in order to address the effectiveness of learning, to see how the impact is done, improving the quality of science education within international networks, and somehow brainstorming about what is needed today actually in science education. It was not finished, but it was a start for it. Now, one thing that I feel we should also discuss, it's about the systemic change, which is needed to be done, systemic from up, down. We can't talk only about one thing, about values versus political issues which are needed, and as I mentioned before, the gender, but this is the whole project. And just I want one thing to mention. When Ron talked about being the mindset and changing mindset, I recall the movie. It should maybe be not presented, how do you say, a movie shown to students. It was Karate Kid. How do you prepare, I finished, how do you prepare your students to be strong and to believe into the same, to have the self-efficacy, to change their mind, and to believe that they can do it from very simple exercises. So thank you very much.
So thank you, Rachel, for quite extensive conclusions. And Jari, I don't give you more time, because try to finish by 4:30. Then I have 1 minute to say.
1 minute. Okay, I have 7 minutes. So first of all, of course, thank you, Miia, for organizing this meeting and giving us possibility to discuss. I would like to recall what the head of the education committee at the Estonian Academy of Sciences, Jakob Küpärsepp, recognized in his talk those 4 challenges. So I will shortly mention the 2 challenges and answers I have found in this meeting. So the first challenge, he mentioned that how to attract young people to STEM field. So Professor Patkos gave quite many answers actually in his presentation, and I pick one, the authenticity. So how to make science education, math education, engineering education more authentic from the point of view of students and science. So there were examples, for example, from the geography, how the geography activities were very much changed in the project, and they were very much competence-based, solving real-life problems and that kind. So it was coming more authentic. So also those Arnold systems and what the engineering and scientists are doing, that was transferred to the high school, upper secondary school physics classrooms. And you mentioned also the inquiry-based chemistry education, how to make chemistry education in a way that it is following the similar, epistemologically similar processes than in real science. But in a similar way, Professor Blonder make this authenticity also quite nicely in her talk. He talk about those outer activities, informal activities, conference type of activities. So I think that is one key we have to look more, how to make the science education, math more authentic from the point of science. That was the message I quite clearly pick. But also the Marianne's presentation about these climate competencies. So why we are not thinking enough about the real competencies are needed in real life? So why we are not following our science curriculum this kind of knowledge that is acquired from real professionals? The second topic, this is very shortly, the STEM teachers, how to educate high-quality STEM teachers and how to attract enough STEM teachers to our programs. So Professor Patkos and Professor Blonder analyzed those competencies. What kind of knowledge or competencies the STEM teachers need? And of course you mentioned the content, subject matter knowledge is important for STEM teachers. And Patkos talked about this content pedagogy, and Ron about pedagogical content knowledge, and they are quite close actually. But what was interesting for me, they were coming something out of the box, so out of the Schulman's box. So this teacher as scientist way of thinking, so the kind of teachers as researchers, the identity of the researcher, they are able to make changes in their own classroom and do something what they have never done earlier. And also the transformative agency, kind of innovative orientation in teacher profession. Schulman never mentioned about that. And this contemporary knowledge that is needed in teacher profession. And combining this informal, formal situation. What was not so much analyzed, I think, the role of STEM teachers as career counselors, how a STEM teacher in his classroom can also raise those role models in science and engineering, math. That is something I think we should discuss more. Maybe what Rahel mentioned, this systemic change, I think that's I would like also to emphasize. But I skipped this analysis of the Kupersep analysis about the attraction of doctoral students and academic careers more attractive. Maybe I can have the possibility to come back to those topics. So thank you.
So thank you, Jari. So I think that we have concluded everything what has been spoken here. And even if I wished, I don't have much else to say. But yeah, yes. I want to thank you, everybody who has come here. Once again, big thanks to the Academy of Science staff, hosting us, helping us. So thank you for staff who was filming, taking pictures, so making this attractive and very much updated for the 21st century. And my biggest thanks go to the young scholars who have come here, and some of them might have the first time the chance to speak here in such a nice hall. And I promise that when we come here, once again, then more young people will be amongst the speakers. And thanks. And as we live in an age where we shouldn't waste anything, then I still think that there is some food but shouldn't stay when you have left. So please come and help together to finish some coffee and some sandwiches, which is in the other room. So thanks for coming.